So let's talk about early 2026. Because in a very short span of time, a few seemingly disconnected things happened that, when you put them together, paint a pretty wild picture of the future. We're talking about a hyper-realistic robot, a nuclear reactor showing up on a battlefield, and a massive split in the crypto market. It turns out they're all connected in ways we're just starting to understand.
But let me just start by asking you this. Can you really tell the difference between a human and a machine anymore? I ask because a recent breakthrough in robotics didn't just blur that line. It pretty much erased it, and it's making a lot of us question what's even real. So today, we're going to connect those dots. First, we'll dive into this humanoid revolution. Then, we'll look at how warfare is getting a brand new power source. After that, we'll unpack the high-stakes drama that's splitting the crypto world in two. And we'll see how the AI ripple effect is the one thread tying it all together. And finally, we'll talk about what you need to watch for next.
All right, first up, the humanoid revolution. And you really need to forget everything you think you know about those clunky, slow-moving robots. We are talking about a leap into hyper-realism that has completely rewritten the rules.
It all kicked off with this video that came out of China. Now, at first glance, it looks like a sweet elderly woman, but it's a robot. Its skin, its movements, the way it interacts, it was so unbelievably realistic that it just flew right past that uncanny valley. You know, that creepy feeling you get from robots that are almost human? This wasn't creepy. It was just unbelievable. This wasn't just another upgrade. This was a whole new chapter.
And of course, where there's a tech shock like that, the money follows. Almost immediately, Hyundai's Boston Dynamics started heading for an IPO, and the estimated valuation is a staggering 40 trillion Korean won. To put that in perspective, that's around 30 billion US dollars. This is proof that humanoid robots aren't just a science project anymore. This is a massive, mature, and very serious market.
And we know it's not just a one-off thing, because the whole industry is gearing up. Component makers are now planning to sell thousands of humanoid robot joints every year. And those joints, that's the key battleground for making these things move like us. An entire supply chain is spinning up, not for one-off prototypes, but for mass production. This is about putting humanoids out there at scale.
Okay, so from robots to the battlefield, how does this all connect? Well, it turns out the same kind of tech disruption is totally reshaping modern warfare. The future of conflict isn't just about firepower anymore. It's about power itself, both energy and information.
What you're seeing here, this is a historic moment. The US military, for the very first time, airlifted a nuclear microreactor straight into a combat zone. Just stop and think about what that means. It's a source of almost unlimited, clean energy that you can drop anywhere in the world at a moment's notice. It's a total game changer.
And here's why that's such a massive strategic shift. The old way of doing things involved these long, vulnerable diesel convoys. They were a logistical nightmare and a prime target for attack. The new way? It just cuts that fuel tether completely. It means your forces can run high-tech equipment basically forever without needing a fragile supply line stretching back for miles.
This has led defense analysts to basically declare a whole new doctrine for war. It's not just about brute force anymore. They're saying future fights will be won or lost based on two things: energy independence, which we just saw, and the other big one, information dominance. And there is a perfect recent example of that second point.
So get this. According to reports, right after access to the Starlink satellite network was cut off for Russian forces, Ukrainian military pulled off its biggest territorial gains in more than 2 years. It's just a crystal clear demonstration of how controlling the flow of information can be just as powerful as controlling the ground.
All right, let's pivot from the physical battlefield to the digital one, because there's another huge conflict playing out right now. The crypto market is at this massive fork in the road, and it's being torn between two totally different futures.
On one side, you have some really dire warnings coming from the economist Nouriel Roubini. Now, this is the guy who famously predicted the 2008 financial crisis, so when he talks, people listen. And he's forecasting what he calls a crypto endgame, even comparing it to the collapse of Lehman Brothers. That is not a warning you just brush aside.
But here's where it gets really interesting.
Inside the market itself, there's this fascinating split happening. Bitcoin, which has always been pushed as a store of value, is really struggling against all these recession warnings. But at the same time, other assets are picking up steam. Take XRP, for instance. It's seeing huge institutional investment because its ecosystem for decentralized finance, or DeFi, is actually growing. So it's become this battle between a narrative of pure speculation versus the reality of actual tangible use.
So we've got hyper-realistic robots, a new era of warfare, a crypto market at a breaking point. What's the one thread connecting all of this? Well, you've probably guessed it. It's the explosive, sometimes chaotic, boom in artificial intelligence.
The demand for AI is just soaring, and it's sending shockwaves through, well, everything. It's causing a RAM crisis in semiconductors that's so bad, even gaming devices like the Steam Deck are running out of stock. In the car industry, it's what lets Tesla drop the price of its full self-driving software to just $99 a month. And then there's the dark side. This boom has kicked off a huge ethical crisis over things like voice cloning and those awful Nudify apps. The ripple effect is literally everywhere.
Okay, so with all of this happening at once, where are we headed? Let's break down the key events that you absolutely need to have on your radar. So keep these dates in mind. On March 4th, we've got an Apple event that could signal their next big play in hardware. Then, in mid-March, Samsung's launching its AI phone, and that's going to be a huge test for whether consumers actually want this stuff. And all through the spring, the world is going to be watching Ukraine to see if this new edge in information and energy can really turn the tide of the war. And beyond those dates, there are a few other big things bubbling up. Watch for governments everywhere to start scrambling to regulate generative AI. Keep an eye on the semiconductor market. That's going to stay volatile. And of course, there's that massive Boston Dynamics IPO, which is probably going to reset the value of the entire robotics industry.
And all of this really leaves us with one final thought. We're talking about androids that look human, Frontlines powered by nuclear energy, and AI that can create and deceive, all at the same time. The gap between what used to be science fiction and what is now our daily reality is closing faster than any of us expected. So the real question we all have to ask ourselves is, are we ready for what happens next?